Welcome to the Pastors Podcast. This is Pastor Scott, and with me today are the pastors of Cornerstone South Bay, Zach, Nix, and Chris Wessel.
Howdy. Hi.
that wasn't a very exciting...
Getting used to this. we don't
Thanks
for
do
having
this.
Yeah.
I mean, this is... here's the pastors of Cornerstone South Bay, but obviously, like, pastors here, people that you've known if you've been here at the church for any amount of time as your pastors as well. And, I just... thought it'd be a cool opportunity to get to hear about what God is doing in the South Bay. It's been a year, and what a year it's been.
There it is. There it is.
These guys are laughing at me because sometimes I script things I need to say, and what a year it's been was something that ended up on my script
In an email to us, along with 5 questions.
I feel thankful that 2020 has proven to be really unremarkable in the history of the world, and so I think actually there's a good chance that Cornerstone South Bay's launch and 1-year anniversary will rank as one of the highlights of the whole year.
Well, it may not be the most newsworthy, but it may be one of the highlights.
Absolutely.
I sure hope so.
All right. So wait, before we get started though, Chris, you have a story about your mom listening to the podcast, and she might even listen to this podcast. And you told me, and I think it should be. I was sad we weren't recording when you shared it earlier.
First of all, when Scott said you have a story, I was a little nervous about where he was going with that.
There's a few stories we won't put down.
Exactly. I don't want that one being recorded. It was pretty funny. One of those. My mom, we had mentioned to our people a few months back about the politics sermon series that was starting here, and kind of pointing people, in the direction of that as material that we wanted people to be taking in and listening to during, the run up to the election. And my mom happened to be listening that Sunday to our service, and so she asked for it, and I sent her the sermon series, which was just starting, and I also sent her the podcast kind of as the intro. And the first thing she sent back after listening to the podcast for like 15 minutes was, "Man, these guys are funny." Which I know is the takeaway you guys are going for.
It is, and for those who are listening who don't find us funny, I just wanted to make sure
that's true.
that it was recorded on the record.
Somebody thought that we were funny.
We got some affirmation, and that's gonna keep us going for another 6 months.
That's right. Thanks a lot, Chris's mom.
All right, so this is actually a really unique way to talk about things, because it's not just God's activity. It's not just like 5 minutes on a Sunday morning. It's not just an email, right? But we actually get to hear a little bit more about what's gone on, what the last year's been like. I mean, it has been a crazy year to plant a church for the first year of the life of the church. But why don't we just look back and maybe tell us what the first, few months were like before all this hit. How is it going? How is the pandemic affected things, and what's going on now?
Zach, you
Go for it. I'll defer here to the boss.
Yeah, Zach and I were driving up here. We were talking about how kind of there's this breakdown in time frame that you just kind of broke down for us, Scott, that is kind of perfectly helpful, of like our start in November 2019 up until early March and COVID, and then taking us up into now, kind of into the fall, and then kind of where we're at now, having settled in a little bit, I would say. I should say our family, the Nix's family, and then the Pierce family, as well as the Wozniaks and a few other families, we were all basically moved down into the South Bay by May 2019, June 2019. And so that enabled, our various children to start school in the fall 2019 school year, and just kind of getting settled in, still attending up here in West LA. And then November 2019, we kind of kicked off actually, first sermon, first Sunday morning series down there, first Sunday morning service, I should say, down there. And we were meeting in the Wozniaks' living room, which was just an incredible blessing. They purchased a home, and were able to open that up to our people. And I mean, what a rich blessing for a small church body to be starting off, and to have a living room a kitchen, an open area for us to gather on a Sunday morning was amazing. And
those were the days when we could cram in
Yeah.
together.
Yeah, exactly.
Remember the good old days when we
yes.
like packed in, we packed people in close to each
we
other.
like had food for everybody.
That's right.
Coffee. And we were able, if you kind of heard us talking over 2019, kind of running up to the church plant, you're familiar with the fact that one of our biggest foreseeable challenges was with our kids, just the number of kids we had at the time. I think we had 10 children, all 7 and younger. It was Wyatt 7, maybe 8 and younger.
7 at the time,
a lot of young children. And so we were able to actually still serve them and teach them, and then, kind of shuttle them off to another room a little bit in the Wozniak's home so that we could then have service together and have the kids involved in music. And really just, it was incredible. It was such a provision of God to let us do that, to have that intimate space. We were able to hang out after service and talk through the sermon. We even introduced kind of sermon discussion as part of our service structure.
Yeah, I remember that.
Which I think the first Sunday was super awkward.
It was. Nobody knew what to do because it wasn't after the service. It was basically, I got done with the sermon and
as a part of the
had
service.
a closing prayer, and then pull a stool out and sat down and started asking questions.
Yeah.
And
expecting people to respond.
Right. Trying to get some discussion going so that
For
we
some
could try
reason
to
from
apply
Cornerstone
this.
West LA, they were not used to that.
No, that was
they weren't prepared for.
I think you all need to bring that, just start asking questions after the sermon. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
So it's like, we're not going to sing our last song until you guys talk to me.
Yeah. So we played around with that a little bit, but it was, I think after, kind of getting used to that, it became really a rich part of our service. We were small enough and intimate enough, and we all kind of knew each other well enough to be able to do that and like ask questions and try to apply some things a little bit more straightforwardly while it was in our minds, like really, really fresh. So yeah, we were doing that. We started in a series in 1 Timothy and started working through that.
And then March.
Yeah. Go for it, Zach. Then March.
Yeah. So obviously with the pandemic and the various regulations, as everything shut down, it's I don't know. It's funny to look back on, and also a little embarrassing to look back on and think how sweet and naive we were. We decided to, because we didn't have any infrastructure, we didn't have any equipment, we had no technical expertise in doing anything online. We thought, well, okay, we'll just sit tight, and it's a 3-week order. You remember that? It's a 3-week order. So we're just going to sit back, and what we're going to do is we're going to make use of Cornerstone West LA's streaming worship service.
That's right.
Right. And so we encourage our people to tune into that. And then we set up a Zoom call following the service that we could all join in on and have some discussion and just kind of connect with each other a little bit.
Yeah.
And so we thought, we're just going to do that and write it out until we can resume. Again, it was a simpler time.
Yeah.
We did that for about 5 weeks and then realized, okay,
this isn't going
anywhere. We need to figure out how we can do this as a family and how we can take care of our people directly instead of sort of offloading them to you guys and what you were doing. So we basically took our service on Zoom and set it up to conduct it in that way. It was a little choppy at first, trying to figure out, who's unmuted, who's somebody's singing and not well, and you're cutting out the person who's trying to lead us, and there was some of that awkwardness. It was weird to preach from my office to an empty room.
Anybody who's ever sung Happy Birthday on Zoom knows
exactly right.
How difficult.
Zach and I were exchanging a lot of texts behind the scenes.
That's
like,
right.
Dude, figure this out. You need to cut this person off.
But that's kind of been the way that we did it, was just to use Zoom. Somewhere along the way, I think after a few weeks, I figured out how to live stream our Zoom meeting to our website. It still works to this day. Don't ask me how. If it ever stops working, we're just going to abandon it because I have no idea what I did and how I made it work.
But you figured it out once, and for one day you knew how to do it, and now
it was enough. So now all I have to do each Sunday is hit a button, and
the
away we
things
go.
they don't teach you in seminary.
Yeah, there's no playbook for any of this. You know, people keep
Yeah.
asking me like, "How's it been going?" And it's just like I don't have a criteria to measure that against. Number one, I've never planted a church before, period, and nobody has ever done it in a pandemic. So it's not like you can pull off that book from your shelf. And anyway, so we did that, and we finished up our First Timothy series, and we in June things started to loosen a little bit, and we felt like we could take advantage of that with our size and meet in person. So we had one Sunday in June when we met together. About half of us met in the Pierce's backyard. We continued to still conduct the service over Zoom for those who wanted to stay home. And then 2 days later, the governor imposed new restrictions on singing and all this kind of stuff. So we were back to virtual again. But things got clarified, and then it was about, I guess, in late July that we resumed meeting in person, outdoors at the Pierce's backyard, and we've been doing that ever since. So
and you Zoom that as well, right? Like
we do Zoom that as well. Yeah,
okay.
We still have one or two families that join via Zoom every Sunday, and then we through the live stream, which is much less participatory. We end up with people from all over the place. We've gone international. I don't want to brag.
People from all over the world.
But all over the
tuning
world.
in. Oh yeah.
They might share our last names, but still.
Zach's parents do live.
Dang it.
You probably want to edit that out. So that's been something that's effective. We've continued to do, and it's worked pretty well. Being outside in somebody's backyard, there's the occasional challenge of, a neighbor is sawing a pipe in their
actually
door.
happened on Sunday morning.
So this morning, I mean, we're just getting used to this. I mean, we've been doing the communion services for a number of months now, but even when we started that, I kind of learned from you guys, right? I asked like, wait, hey, what's working, what's not, and so this morning, I don't know, I had maybe 10 minutes left in my sermon, and there was a car accident.
Oh my!
Right
goodness.
on Barrington, like right next to us.
Man.
Wow. Thankfully, it wasn't too bad. Like it was kind of just like a fender bender. But everybody's sitting there, and here's the screech.
Oh man!
And I'm like up on the stage, and so I'm looking over. I'm like, it looks minor.
Everyone turned into a traffic.
I did for about 30 seconds. I'm like, it looks minor.
Might want to avoid Barrington
That's
South.
right. Everyone's fine. They're just not happy. I think we can go on with the sermon. So not quite pipe sawing.
No,
but
well, and
that's much more dramatic than anything that we have had.
But we also have the challenge of like we're only doing one service, so that is our recorded service as well. So the sound quality we're dealing with, a little different, but no big deal there.
So
awesome. So how have the people that are a part of Cornerstone South Bay like connected during this time? Like what's that looked like? I mean, I know that there was this very very strong community, right? And the heart was to be this community that could reach your community and to live this out together, right? This is the vision of this church plant in the South Bay, and like all of that. I mean, not just your services, right? But all of that got so much harder.
Yeah.
Like what's that looked like for the kind of connecting points of the people within the church?
Yeah, I mean, it's worth saying, like as you were saying, Scott, like pre-COVID, our connections and community was being built, I think, pretty robustly. Like it is really encouraging. I mean, we have, again, a small group of men and women, and our children, of course, but like especially our men and women, like just being faithful, strong, committed brothers and sisters, and committed to the church plant, committed to what God's doing there. And so that's led to, I think, pretty strong bonds between people. Even a few, we've had a couple individuals join us who weren't as connected in Cornerstone West LA before, who were pretty new to the church, and then they've joined us, which even them being kind of brought into that family, I think it's been really strong. And I think so much so that it's really enabled us in many ways, by God's grace, to continue through this time
Mm-hmm.
with relative ease, just as far as like shepherding our people and
Yeah.
continuing those connections. It's just I've been incredibly encouraged by it. I know Zach has been, of our various people, like really reaching out and still maintaining connections. And obviously, just like everywhere, I mean, with COVID, I mean, you know, we first had our pretty tight lockdowns, but as you know, we've tried to be wise and obedient, but also faithful, and you know, still wanting to meet with people and what that looks like, and being able to meet with people in front yards and backyards, and you know, via Zoom, whatever it might be. I've been really encouraged by it in incredible ways. I mean, even just take Halloween, for example. We were able to, you know, kind of do drive-by trick-or-treating with our various people for our children. And yeah, just what a special event that was for our people in light of really the challenges of, you know, what else could we really do. So I think that's been one of the real sweet spots, I think, like real encouragements for us as far as seeing those. And even like our women just kind of organically planning a women's connect, you know, kind of event this coming Saturday for teaching and singing and prayer and just worship together. It seems like the friendships that have developed, the community that's developed has been really, really solid.
Yeah, I mean, beyond the things that we've done programmatically, which has also been an encouragement. I mean, I'm thinking about we haven't talked about our Wednesday night Bible study that we had been doing in person. When everything got shut down, we moved that virtual. I mean, our attendance went way up. I mean, we had people who, and a lot of that just had to do with, you know, everybody's at home, and so we push it later into the evening, and so those that had kids, that challenge went away because they were put to bed and not a distraction. But even those who like typically would work later and couldn't make it at the time we had before were now able to attend, and so we had more people joining, and consistently, I mean, each and every week, so many people showing up to participate. All the more remarkable because they asked me to walk them through each book of the Old Testament and just sort of give a high level view of, you know, the structure and the themes and like how to understand these books. And you know, that's not exactly, you know, a huge draw on its own, especially when I'm the one who's leading it. But there have been those things programmatic that we've tried to do, that we've maintained, that everyone has just really committed to and said, yeah, like this is what we're going to do. And we're going to show up and participate. But to what Chris was saying, I think one of the most incredible, most encouraging things has been the ways that those connections and those efforts have been made organically outside of what we've tried to do sort of structurally or programmatically as a church. And so I hear all the time about a group of women, for example, who decided, hey, they're going to read this book together on this particular topic, or this other group of people who, hey, we're going to get together via Zoom every Tuesday morning for coffee and just to kind of connect. I hear about older individuals in the church having dinner with younger individuals in the church, and yeah, I think our folks have really risen to the challenge and have recognized the value of community, that it hasn't just been something that we give lip service to, but something that everybody has really understood. This is important, and we need to figure out and fight all together to work towards it and to protect it.
I think it's worth sharing even just the rich blessing that the Nixes, for those who don't know, they were living in an apartment in Hawthorne when they first moved down, and in August, our family, we were living in Lawndale. We are living in Lawndale. We were renting a house, and our neighbors who live behind us, who we have gotten very close with, were moving out, and the Nixes were able to move into the house that opened up behind us. So we now live on the same property, which, you know, we could talk about it in so many different ways, the incredible blessing that is for both of our individual families. But I think for the church, like, it opened up a yard for the Nixes to host people. And like, because before, you know, being in an apartment without any outdoor space, that was very difficult. And so now being able to actually have people from the church over for counseling, for dinner, for hanging out outside, like that you know, that's such a rich blessing that like God provided, and that was in August. So there are things like that I think are, you know, just kind of easy to forget, that they're just really incredible provisions from God as we're doing all of this.
Yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely. So the other, I mean, we've talked about the heart to go into the South Bay for the sake of the community, right? For the sake of reaching the community around you. And this, you know, 3-4 months into that, like all of a sudden your ability to do this like cut off.
yeah.
Right. I mean, as you guys, I mean, I'd love to even just hear your thoughts, and even if they're completely unformed thoughts, as you look to the next year, right, as you look forward from here, like how are you striving to engage with relationships? Like where do you find those, and how do you connect in the midst of with all the limitations? How do you kind of live out that desire to still reach the community and be there for the sake of the community?
Yeah, that was, you know, one of the things we were talking about on the drive up was this is one of those things that we knew going down there, but we knew it intellectually, but we've begun to experience it. Is what we knew was that this is an area that is not nearly as transient as the West Side, that there are people there who are longtime residents, lifelong residents. There's not as much turnover, and we understood that. What I don't know that we necessarily anticipated was the fact that as a result, there's not the same sort of void of community that people experience there that maybe people experience on the West Side. People have, you know, family around them.
Yeah.
People have longtime friends and neighbors that they are around. And so I think about, you know, wanting to go and to bring a gospel community that would be hopefully very attractive and would take root in that way. One of the unexpected challenges has just been the fact that people have a sense of community already and aren't necessarily looking for a community, any kind of community to be a part of. Now, obviously, we believe that the church is not just one of another kind of community,
of course.
right? But it just,
as far as people's felt needs,
right?
Yeah.
As far and so it's you know, it's just one of those things that we realize, like, this is going to take more time, right? It's going to take more investment, more developing in pursuit of people. And, you know, obviously a lot of the ways that we had anticipated being able to connect and build these relationships have been shut down. I think about our schools, for example, and you know, my family, we began to make some connections, and then everybody, you know, disappeared under a rock when everything got shut down. And just the general sense of, you know, people have pulled back. People are staying home. They're, you know, have, especially early on, right? Everybody was very much, I mean, it was a ghost town. So looking ahead, I think number one, as Chris already mentioned the new resource that my family has in particular in terms of having an outdoor space and trying to take advantage of that. We have a place where we can, we believe, safely, comfortably have people over, share a meal. We've been doing outdoor movies, and so trying to build on existing relationships, and then also, you know, hopefully have ways that we can connect with people, and trying to take advantage. You know, as I say this. As things hopefully will start loosening up, I say this as, you know, cases are surging, and I have no idea what's going to happen over the next couple weeks and months. But both as people, I think, become a little less guarded, right? People, we understand more what the situation is. People, I think, are a little bit more comfortable being out, you know, with certain precautions and things. So sort of that psychological, I guess, shift, but also as things open up a little bit more, I think, for example, the AYSO down by us is hosting a soccer league. I say in air quotes for those who are listening at home. You know, that we signed our kids up for. There's no games, there's no scrimmaging. It's basically just a soccer camp. They show up for practice once a week with their own ball, and they run individual drills and things like that. But it's an opportunity that's being given, and there's a whole bunch of parents that are sitting on the sideline, and we are hoping to be able to take advantage of that particular opportunity to hopefully meet some new people.
Go ahead.
I mean, in my mind, and I'm not, Scott knows this, not like planning is not my forte. So looking forward for me is not like something I think a lot about, but something I've been challenged to do more and more, especially in light of COVID and the need for it. But yeah, I think just to echo what Zach was saying, like Ezekiel, my oldest, he's 5. He started T-ball in February. We got through 2 games and then it got canceled completely. And like, I had finally started to meet some dads, of other kids, minus our immediate neighbors. Those were kind of the first people I had really started, I feel like, to connect with and like find some needs in the community as far as like how is the Little League structured and where are some needs that maybe I could help with. And then it all got shut down. And then, school was similar. With Zeke was in preschool, and then he rolled into starting kindergarten all remotely. So that's been a real challenge of getting to know people. Shannon is trying to be involved in the PTA, again, all remote at this point. But I think we're really trying to get back to where we were in a sense of like, and I would say that's kind of step one is like, can we get back to where we were as far as like looking at obviously our neighbors, our schools, maybe sports leagues and like other community events going on, and how can we get back kind of involved in those so we're actually having like helpful touches with people and like really getting to know people. And we have had some of those relationships that started and have continued, which has been really encouraging. Some of our neighbors who we're still in touch with, the folks who live behind us who moved out, we still see them since we were living on the same property and everything, which has been really encouraging. They came one Sunday, actually listened in, which was, encouraging to have them immediately involved. But that's kind of my kind of first step out, if you will, is like, can we just get back to normal? That feels like a bite-sized chunk I'm longing for in a sense. But I think beyond that too, we've shared the reality that it's been hard not to have like, I guess what we'd call like outreach events, like where we can just like get our name out there and like get out in the community and do some things that, I don't know, we don't even know fully what that looks like because we just haven't thought that far out yet. Because it's felt like kind of impossible at this point. But we do want to be doing that. And so kind of think creatively about how do we kind of get our name out there and invite people in. Right now it's been mostly interpersonal, which clearly needs to continue. I mean, that's kind of in one sense a heartbeat of our outreach kind of thoughts, if you will.
I mean, I actually think that's really, really encouraging, and I think also just a powerful example for all of us. I mean, the events are going to come, the opportunities are going to come. They're opportunities to quote unquote get Cornerstone South Bay's name out there. Those things are going to come.
I already said we've gone international.
I don't know what more you want from me.
Our name is out there.
But what's so encouraging to me is that what I hear you say is that we're just going to try to engage, and we're going to try to engage any way we can, right? Like we're just, whatever opportunities out there, we're going to any way we can, and whatever we can, we're going to do with gospel intentionality, right? We're going to do with a mind that says, I'm here because I love you and I love Jesus, and I want you to know about that. And what's so encouraging to me is I hear that as something that all of us can do, right? Like no matter, like that's something every Christian's called to, right? That's something every Christian is called to, is the type of gospel intentionality that says, how am I going to engage for the sake of the gospel? Like, what does outreach, quote unquote, look like? Well, I think it just looks like engaging with others right now, any way you can, just finding the ways, and then doing it, not just saying, okay, my kid needs some exercise, so we're going to do soccer, check that box. Well, no, like soccer's now an opportunity. It's a to engage with gospel intentionality. The Zoom PTA is an opportunity.
Shannon's been dreaming about that for years, man.
Right, to engage with gospel intentionality, and that's so encouraging to me, and it also, I think, demonstrates a little bit of why what the Lord's doing in the South Bay, what he's doing through Cornerstone South Bay is so incredibly encouraging. I think the expected, if you were to look back on a year like this, I think what you would expect from your average quote unquote like church plant would be a launch and then a whoops, wrong time in the history of the world to launch a church. I guess, that'll go in the history books and we like move on. Yeah. And what the Lord has done instead is produced a thriving community that is investing in one another. That he's using this, he's redeeming this season in the life of the story of whatever he does through this body, but he's redeeming it in powerful ways in the community that he's building and in growing that community with hearts of that type of gospel intentionality. And so a year in, it would, like, I feel like what the Lord's doing right now, like, I would have been a huge success and something hugely to celebrate if there hadn't been a pandemic. Yep. And the Lord's chosen to do it in the midst of a pandemic, right? Like just continue to grow and develop and this community and strengthen it in ways that, I mean, it's only him, right? Yeah. Like it's just his spirit has been so gracious, and that's really 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 exciting to me.
Yeah, I would. Sorry, were you about to say something, Zach?
Go for it. I defer to the boss.
Right. That's such a good reminder, Scott, because to be honest, like there are times where this feels to me, just on a personal level, it can be discouraging. Like that, man, it feels like our abilities to really reach the community are cut off, and like we've been here for a year, and I don't think I've been unrealistic about like, oh, we should have 100 people by now or something. Nothing like that, but like the fact that it's pretty much all people from West LA there's a temptation in that to kind of lose heart a little bit of be like, what have we done in a sense. But I think you're absolutely right. When we step back and kind of look at what God is doing, it's incredible. And like I mean, I've read story after story, really heartbreaking story of so many church plants that just haven't been able to survive this.
Totally.
And the fact
vast majority,
we've not only survived in a sense, but like we just looked at our first quarter budget and like we're pretty near self-sufficient as far as our finances, which I know we probably don't want to tell the West LA folks that. No.
This is good information.
Forget I said that.
Edit that out.
But seriously, that's God providing that.
Yeah.
And like, that's incredible. Like that is so incredible. And look, we know like our expenses are like Zach and like a few a few other things that are very small. And so but it's amazing to see people's faithfulness and ultimately God's faithfulness in providing at that level, and to be reminded of that and to like not lose heart in the fact that this is who we are right now. And we hope that this is certainly a season. It's not a wasted season though by any means. Like we are called to be growing in the midst of this challenging season, and by God's grace, like he is growing his church. It's not how we ever would have drawn it up, which is, I think we're always
praise the Lord for that.
Yeah, exactly. Like the other thing you said that I just want to encourage people with is like that the idea of gospel intentionality, and like whether for those who don't know, I wrestle the most with whether to like for our family to move as part of this church plant. And there's a reality here that like whether we moved or not, the call in my life and my family's lives should have been the same as far as that gospel intentionality. And the idea of meeting people and bringing them in and like wanting to share meals with them and listen and preach the gospel to them and bring the word of God to bear on their lives. Like that's not just on Zach and me as pastors. Like that's on the church. And whether you're planting a church or part of a church, like we are called to that. And that's a helpful reminder for me too. When, there can be kind of a sense of an added burden or weight, about like what it takes to plant a church. And there's certainly some of that in the role of being a pastor, but like just the day in day out life of like gospel intentionality is really no different in that sense. And I even remember Brian encouraging me, that's Pastor Brian, of like, think of it more like starting a community group.
Yeah.
Like don't think about it as like going down and having to start this church where you think of it as in terms of like West LA and like numbers, but just think about like what you would do to start a community group. Mm-hmm. And that's been really helpful because for me, because I think of us wanting to invest around that, and God gives a growth as we just try to seek to water and plant and nourish people with the word and see what he does with it. And again, right now it's not a place we would ever draw up for ourselves, but it is good. And that's good to be reminded of.
That's so cool.
And remarkably, this morning we had more people involved in our service than we did a year ago. And so the Lord has, in fact, numerically grown us. Again, not in ways that we would have anticipated, but that's a reality. When I was in seminary, I had I don't know if it was a professor. I don't remember where exactly it came from, but at some point the idea or the thought was impressed upon me that for especially to the young guys coming out of seminary, a lot of them are going to go into their first ministry jobs full time right away. What was said was, you're going to be quick to overestimate what you can accomplish in a year, and you're also going to be quick to underestimate what you can accomplish in 5 years. And that's been something that for whatever reason, I took to heart and has been proven to be particularly valuable as I look back and I think about this last year and what it has looked like. And no, it didn't go to script, and it has certainly had its fair share of challenges. But I remember a phone call you and I, Scott, had back in, I think, April. It was pretty early on. We were talking, and we were talking about how I guess one of the blessings of this is kind of the simplicity of ministry that it puts on us as pastors, because especially at the time when we weren't really even being able to meet in person, it's like, what can we do? Well, we can pray and we can teach the word. And that's what we're called to do, right? So it was helpful to not necessarily get distracted by all the kind of the other things that we end up putting out a lot of our energies to, and just think about, okay, here's where we are. This is what the year has been. This is the situation that God has put us in. So what does it look like to be faithful? What does it look like to walk forward in obedience and continue to invest and shepherd and in his church? And I think about, I was just talking to the guy that cut my hair the other day, who was very interested. There's another potential. I'm going to get haircuts all the time. That's the way I'm going to
get haircuts with gospel intentionality.
That's right. We had a great conversation, this barber and I. But I was telling him, like, look, we're just getting started, and we figure we're laying a foundation for something that we hope to be able to build on, more rapidly in the future. But right now, nothing's wasted. All this investment and pouring into our people corporately and individually in all these different ways, we trust that it's going to bear fruit in its season. And so that's been a helpful way to think about it and to not get discouraged and to just keep pressing forward.
Yeah, that's honestly, it's really encouraging to me. Even just here, I think we're obviously at a different point in the life cycle of the church, but the reality that not only are we, getting through this, right, but that all the work that we're doing, all the preaching, all the praying, all the connecting, all the counseling and shepherding and discipling, even in its various and distanced forms at times, is both providing for and it's accomplishing the gospel work that God wants for now, and it's also laying a foundation for the things that are beyond our imagination that he wants to do in the future. And he continues to build his church. I've been so encouraged to see that here and to see that through what he's doing through you guys too. So,
and I think it's helpful because this is something that I know was really impressed upon me from our time at Cornerstone West LA, is the fact that we believe strongly that God builds his church. And that applies most immediately to the local church that we're a part of. but more significantly is the fact that applies to his global church. And so I've thought a lot about, and we talked about this, I told people this before we made the move, as we were thinking about this, that I felt confident that God was calling me and my family to be a part of this, to go down there. But I had no idea if that meant that God was calling me to thrive down there, right? I don't know, and I still don't know what the outcome of Cornerstone South Bay is going to be. But I know that God builds his church. And whether that's with Cornerstone South Bay existing for, I guess we've made it a year, so 2 years, right? Or 20 years, it is in a sense irrelevant from the standpoint of changing, what do I need to do? What do I need to be focused on? Because everything we do, whether we end up having to shut this operation down in 2021, we're still participating, invited to join in the building of God's church. And all those people are going to go someplace else, and they're going to be rooted in whatever community in the future. And again, that fruit is going to come to life, whether I get to see it immediately or not. And so we just want to keep that perspective.
Yeah. It's so refreshing. It's so refreshing even just for me to hear and remember. Well, thank you guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for taking the time to do it. I mean,
do you think anybody's going to listen to this?
Somebody,
Zach and I on?
I think your mom definitely will.
My mom and our wives.
I think your mom definitely will. No, I think this is a huge blessing, because I think there are a lot of people who deeply care about you guys, who deeply care about those that are with you as well, and get to hear bits and pieces. But this is probably even a little bit more of an extended overall update, which I think is really helpful. And I know that a lot of people that have also just continued to be praying for you. And so Cornerstone West LA, I would just encourage you to continue to be praying for the work that the Lord's doing in the South Bay, that he would raise up more and more people that have a heart and a passion for that community, that are living with gospel intentionality, and that he would build his church according to his perfect plan in the South Bay, and that he would build his church according to his perfect plan here in West LA as well, and continue that work of multiplication that he does, because he loves us. And not only does he love us, he loves the world that he came to save, and that he's given us the privilege of getting to be a part of reaching as well. So I just love the opportunity to get to, and the excuse to get to hang out with you guys. So I'll take that anytime. But yeah, thanks for coming. Thanks for coming up. Thank you. And thank you all for listening. We love you, and please be praying and continue to be praying for the South Bay. We will see you on Sunday.